Marshall Peak, Chapter 5978, The Way Forward, Marshall Peak. As the primordial heaven's source grand restriction was about to break, it was pointless for Wu Kuang to stay connected to it any longer. In fact, he would even have to suffer the backlash if he remained. So, the moment he realized that the situation was irreversible, he left the grand restriction as soon as possible. With this, he could at least ensure that he would not be injured. As for Yang Kai, who still remained inside, he was no longer able to provide much help to him regardless. What caught the attention of the many Ninth Order masters, however, was the aura that Wu Kuang was displaying at this moment. Wu Kuang's existence was known only to a few human race masters. They knew that he was sent here by Yang Kai to guard the primordial heaven's source grand restriction, but no one knows how strong he was, not even Yang Kai. After all, when he sent Wu Kuang here, he was only in the 7th Order open heaven realm. Even though he later broke through to the 8th Order and then the 9th Order, no one had any close contact with him, so they could only speculate on his strength. At this moment, Wu Kuang's strength was finally revealed to the world. He was at the peak of the 9th Order. He was even stronger when compared to Xiao Xiao and Wu Qing, the oldest veteran masters of the human race. In the situation they were facing, having another peak 9th Order master would be of great help. However, something unexpected happened before the humans could even rejoice. Wu Kuang's departure from the grand restriction sped up its destruction. Even more cracks appeared, and soon, the primordial heaven's source grand restriction, which had persisted for millions of years, shattered like a broken mirror. Glowing dots of light filled the void, and as the light dissipated, boundless black filled one's vision. The blackness seemed to possess a life of its own, writhing and rolling as the auras of an uncountable number of beings could be felt inside of it. Before the grand restriction broke, the Black Ink clan could only leave through that one opening, so even at the height of the Human Crusade Forces crisis, not too many Black Ink clan reinforcements could get out at once. This allowed them to maintain a degree of control over the situation. But now, things have changed. With the complete destruction of the grand restriction, all of the Black Ink clansmen hiding inside of it were instantly released. No one had any idea just how many Black Ink clansmen were still hidden in that abyss of darkness. The only thing that the humans could feel glad about was the fact that they had killed many of the Black Ink clan masters before, which relieved some of the pressure they had to face at this moment. The human race army waited with bated breath, but to their surprise, not a single Black Ink clansman emerged from the sea of Black Ink strength even after some time had passed. They seemed to be fearful of something. Soon, the human race masters realized what it was. It was Zhong Ruo Shi that the Black Ink clan was afraid of. The power she had shown earlier was beyond comprehension, surpassing even that of the giant spirit gods, allowing her to kill royal lords like she was cutting melons or chopping vegetables. At the moment, Zhong Ruo Shi stood at the very forefront of the small stone race army. Despite standing alone, her presence was still intimidating enough that the Black Ink clan did not dare to move rashly. Even though the white wings spread behind her back were small in the face of the darkness that covered everything the eye could see, the light emitting from her was far too bright for any darkness to truly cover. The Ninth Order masters could not help but feel a little embarrassed at this. If Zhong Ruo Shi had not soared across the skies to their aid, their second crusade would have already failed. If that were to be the case, then they would have no choice but to retreat through the path that Yang Kai had prepared for them, to follow him to seek a new life in a new world. But who would know what that new world would be like? In front of the massive enemy army, Zhong Ruo Shi remained calm and steady. On the other hand, in the void before her, the Black Ink strength surged. The Black Ink clan were too terrified to even move. The power of a single person could actually be so terrifying. All of a sudden, Zhong Ruo Shi's expression changed. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she stared into the depths of the black abyss. Seemingly noticing something, her wings flapped behind her and she turned into a stream of white light, instantly disappearing into the sea of darkness. From afar, a voice reached Mi Jing Lun's ears. "Sir is inside, I'll go and check on him." In an instant, the Black Ink ocean became even more agitated. It was clear that Zhong Ruo Shi was not merely going over to check out the situation. Inside the void that was filled with all the Black Ink clansmen, she couldn't reach Yang Kai without cutting a bloody path through them. In the primordial world, the aftermath of the chaos in Dawn City was still lingering. Just now, everyone saw a figure at the edge of the city soaring into the skies before disappearing without a trace, and after that person disappeared, the black lights that fell from the sky also disappeared. Even though the unusual phenomenon was gone, the panic it caused would not ease for some time. The Saintess and Li Fei Yu looked in that direction together, a pondering look in their eyes. They knew that the first Saintess lived in seclusion at that location, and they had a sneaking suspicion that what they saw was related to her. Shortly after Mo departed, Yang Kai returned to this place, drawn by the power of Mu's shadow. The first thing he saw was Mu, who was standing in front of the small house. "Senior," Yang Kai shouted. Mu turned to look in his direction, seemingly expecting him. "You're here. Where's little 11th?" Yang Kai looked around, though he had a vague guess when he did not see his small figure around. "Sure enough," Mu replied, "he has awakened, and the sealed source pieces have all returned one after the other. This universe world cannot withstand his power, but he was unwilling to destroy it, so he has left my space-time river already." Yang Kai nodded lightly. "I understand. The final battle was upon him, and he had done all that he could. Whether they won or lost would depend on the final fight. Senior, since Mo has awakened, it is time for me to go. The power that the human race has at this time may not be enough to hold him back, but we will do our best. The last shadow of yours I met told me to come back and see you, and that you would show me the way forward, so I hope that Senior can enlighten me." "You have already found your way forward." Mu looked at him with a smile in her gaze. "Huh?" Yang Kai did not understand. "You've chosen the same path that I have," Mu added. Yang Kai was thoughtful, condensing 10,000 grand Daos in one's own body and manifesting the space-time river. Mu nodded lightly. "As I told you before, everyone has their own space-time river, which starts flowing from the day they are born and ends at the day they die. However, since the start of time, few have been able to manifest their space-time river. I was the first, while you are the second." Saying so, she suddenly asked Yang Kai a question. "The open heaven realm method cultivated by the human race is flawed. You must have noticed, yes?" Yang Kai nodded. "The ninth order is the limit of the open heaven realm method, but I had a vague feeling that the ninth order open heaven realm is not the end of martial Dao. There should be a higher realm above the ninth order, above the open heaven realm." "There is indeed a higher realm above the ninth order." Mu gave him an affirmative answer. Yang Kai was astonished. "Has Senior reached it?" Embarrassedly, Mu shook her head. "If I had reached it, the human race would not be in this predicament today. Even though I have not reached it, I did touch upon it." Yang Kai could not help but praise her in his heart, as expected of the strongest among the martial ancestors. Kang told him back then that the martial ancestors were still only in the ninth order, but they were stronger as they had gone further along the path. It was just that they had still yet to leave the bounds of the open heaven realm. However, Mu told him today that she had touched the profound realm above the open heaven realm. Even if she had only touched it and not reached it, it was still an extraordinary achievement. Mu recalled an old memory and slowly began. The open heaven realm method was born out of necessity at a time when the human race was in a difficult situation. The early ancient era great monsters were rampaging throughout the universe, and without the open heaven realm method, the human race would have been nothing but food and slaves for them. During that time, the heavens were quietly beginning to favor the human race, so it devised a way out for them, the open heaven realm method. Only with it can the human race give rise to a constant stream of masters, which gave them the capital to contend with the early ancient era great monsters. However, even the heavens have their selfishness. For example, the primordial world. Once one's cultivation surpasses the immortal ascension realm, they would receive its repulsion and hostility. That is the selfishness of the primordial world. One can also see it as its instinct for self-preservation. The universe is not unchanging as its blessings were first concentrated on the divine spirits before moving to the early ancient era monster race, then finally to us, the human race. Over time, the three races became the favored of the heavens and were given the right to dominate all beneath it. She turned to Yang Kai. "Why do you think this happened?" Yang Kai pondered for a moment. If one race becomes too powerful, then they are no longer fearful of the heavens, and once the power they hold becomes strong enough to oppose it, it creates a sense of crisis in the heavens. Hence, There will be a transfer of its blessing. He had considered such a thing before, so he was able to give a quick answer to Mu's question. Mu nodded. Precisely. The universe lives, and it has its own will. Principles are a part of its will, but it is not the same as us living beings. It is above us as all beings are under its will. If any power that surpasses its control were to come to be, it would move to remedy the situation, but it does not take action itself, and it certainly does not have the power to do so. So, it uses the power of other beings to restore order from chaos and ensure that everything remains on the predetermined path. This is reflected in history from long ago, when the early ancient era monster race overthrew the divine spirits, and when the human race freed itself from the slavery of the early ancient era monster race. But Senior, what does this have to do with my path? Yang Kai looked perplexed. Mu continued, naturally it is all related. Because the open heaven realm method was a gift willed by the heavens, it is also a kind of shackle. It is impossible to break free from these shackles of the open heaven realm method by using the open heaven realm method. In fact, there is only one place in existence that the heavens will cannot cover, and everything that happens and is obtained there is not under the control of the heaven. Yang Kai's eyes lit up and he blurted out, the universe furnace. He could just about understand what Mu was getting at now. I've never understood what the universe furnace is, but it is definitely a place beyond the heavens' influence, Mu asserted. Yang Kai thought to himself, of course the heavens can't interfere with it, because the universe itself was created inside the universe furnace. It could even be considered the origin of the heavens. He had coincidentally seen the true face of the universe furnace and witnessed the process of it taking in chaos and splitting heaven and earth apart. He wanted to discuss all this with Mu, but time was running out and he could not figure out a way to explain everything in a timely manner, so he had no choice but to endure the urge for now. You and I have ventured into the universe furnace, and we have seen the infinite river that flows through it, which led to us condensing our own spacetime rivers. Mu turned to Yang Kai. The spacetime river is your path forward. Marshall Peak. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5979, Final Gift, Marshall Peak. The spacetime river is my path forward. Yang Kai pondered. Senior means to say, the reason why I have placed a barrier outside of my spacetime river is because I knew no one other than those who have also condensed their own spacetime river have the power to save the universe. For those who do not have that ability, it would not benefit them in any way even if they found my spacetime river. Since that is so, it would be better to cut off the hope for those who approach sooner to avoid them having to go through even greater despair later. Mu had hidden her spacetime river in the primordial heaven's source grand restriction, and when Yang Kai was brought to it under Wu Kuang's lead, he felt something blocking him when he tried to enter. However, he was able to pass through easily. He thought at first that it was because of his identity as a human, but it was only later that he discovered this was because he had also condensed his spacetime river. If not for that, no other human would have been able to enter this place, not even if they were in the ninth order. To the humans of the primordial world, the so-called Holy Sun was the savior of this world, but the savior that Mu spoke of was someone who could save the 3,000 worlds. To defeat Mo, the strength of the ninth order open heaven realm alone is not enough. Mo can only be defeated when someone who can break through the shackles of the ninth order and reach the next realm, a realm which I was only a step away from reaching. Yang Kai hurriedly asked, so what is the next realm? Why was Senior unable to make that breakthrough? Mu laughed bitterly before looking at him. As for what exactly the next realm is, even I am not sure. But as for why I did not manage to reach it, it is because my spacetime river is incomplete. Yang Kai could not help but become lost in thought, recalling the wide and beautiful river that he saw before. Even that massive river is incomplete. Then what should a complete spacetime river look like? In the first place, what makes hers incomplete? And what sort of problem did she encounter for her spacetime river to remain incomplete? Is there no way to fix it? Yang Kai asked. Logically speaking, the spacetime river was a condensation and manifestation of one's comprehension of 10,000 Tao strengths. Even if it were to be damaged in the midst of an intense battle, there should be a chance for it to recover as long as the foundations of one's grand Taos remained. The only possibility that would lead to the complete inability for the spacetime river to be recovered was if the foundation of one's grand Taos got destroyed. Mu shook her head. It is not possible to fix. Long past memories tumbled around in her mind, leading her to recall the events of that day, and the corners of her mouth could not help but lift up into a smile. When the profound source gate cut off a section of her spacetime river, she did not think much of it then. She was immersed in her joy of finally rescuing Mo from behind that closed gate. She originally thought that she only needed to open the door again to retrieve that part of her spacetime river. Who could have expected that when she did open the profound source gate, that there would be nothing behind it, only an endless pool of desolation and darkness. But even then, she had not realized the severity of the problem. Not until her spacetime river continued to grow and her cultivation became more robust. When she tried to break through to the next realm, it was then that she helplessly realized that the damage to her spacetime river had cut off all her hopes of taking that final step. If that incident had not happened back then, she should have already broken through the confines of the open heaven realm and reached that mysterious realm. Did she regret it? Not once. She only blamed herself for not teaching Mo properly when she saved him from the profound source gate. By the time she found out about what happened later, the situation was already too far gone to be salvaged. And compared to that, it was not as if she was completely without any harvests. If the profound source gate had not devoured a part of her spacetime river, she would not have been able to refine it so easily. It was one of the most profound innate supreme treasures, after all. As she dispelled the memories from her mind, Mu withdrew her smile and looked seriously at young Kai. You have already set foot on the path, and you will reach the end point sooner or later where you will have to open up the new way forward, but not much time is left for you now. I hope that you can achieve what I failed to back then. At once, the pressure that young Kai felt weighing on him was like a mountain, but he still gave a firm answer. Junior will try his best. Mu smiled and walked up to him. Just like the other shadows that young Kai encountered in the many universe worlds, she gently pressed her hand to his chest. Go, put an end to it all. The human race has suffered since the late ancient era until now. As the favored children of heaven, it is time for us to have our own peaceful world to live in. The reason why young Kai came back here was because the previous shadow had sent him here, but after talking for so long, young Kai still did not get a clear answer from Mu. What did he have to do in order to defeat the current Mo? Mu did tell him that he had to make a breakthrough to the next realm, but he had not even reached the door to the next realm yet. How could he make a quick breakthrough at such an urgent time? Mu continued to smile at him as her figure gradually started to fade. I left you something. You will find out what to do soon enough. As she disappeared, young Kai's body rose involuntarily into the sky and soon plunged into the vast and beautiful spacetime river. This time, however, he did not feel anything pulling him. He had traveled across about 90% of the 3,000 universe worlds in order to suppress and seal the pieces of Mo's source, and he had succeeded in sealing more than 1,000 of them. Right now, Mo had already awoken. The source pieces that young Kai was not able to suppress and seal had returned to Mo, so there was no longer any point in visiting those universe worlds. Young Kai's body bobbed up and down in the river as the currents inside of it stirred. Then, a strange feeling suddenly arose in him. That was, he felt an indescribable sense of affinity and recognition by the spacetime river that should belong to Mu. What's more, it seemed as if he was able to mobilize its power. Young Kai was astonished by this discovery. This was, after all, Mu's spacetime river, the culmination of her lifelong cultivation. Even if Mu had departed from the world of the living long ago, even if he himself had his own spacetime river, it did not make sense for him to feel this affinity and recognition from it. Scenes flashed before his eyes, scenes of him in each universe world at the moment when he parted with Mu. Whether young Kai managed to seal the source pieces or not in each universe world, as long as Mu's shadow still existed, he had not failed to find her and bring her away with him because he was unwilling to see this senior who had fought alone for countless years continue to wait and suffer endlessly. The way he brought her away was through taking the last shreds of energy from her shadows into his own body. Each one was a moment in Mu's lifetime. Mu had divided Mo's source into 3,000 pieces, suppressing and sealing them in different universe worlds, and she had also separated herself into the same number of shadows in order to remain by the source piece's side. Every person had their own spacetime river from the moment that they were born, and it ended at their last breath. Each shadow injected the last of their strength into Yang Kai's body, which was equivalent to granting Mu's existence, during the time used to conceive the shadow, to Yang Kai. During this long journey, the number of shadows that Yang Kai had encountered was over 2000. In other words, out of Mu's many shadows, he had gained the recognition of at least 70% of them. Yang Kai finally understood what it was that Mu had left him. She had left him her own space-time river. With the approval and acknowledgement of most of its owner, Yang Kai could now refine her space-time river and use it for himself. This was Mu's last resort, as well as her final gift. A tidal wave of grief crashed over Yang Kai, overwhelming his entire being. However, he had no time for sorrow. Mo had awakened and escaped, so the human race was in danger of being annihilated at any moment. He had to receive Mu's gift as soon as possible and strengthen himself. However, Yang Kai was acutely aware that despite all of the hidden hands that Mu left behind, it was still not inexhaustible. She must not have thought about the problems with her own cultivation. Mu had gained enlightenment about her own space-time river at a point when she was no longer improving in her cultivation back then. But Yang Kai was different. He was merely at the peak of the 8th order when he trained inside of the universe furnace, before he even took the risk to use the Three Selves Source reconstitution art to break through to the 9th order. It was there where Yang Kai had condensed his own space-time river, long before reaching the peak of the 9th order. When the final war between the human race and Black Ink clan broke out at the No Return Pass, the time left for Yang Kai to cultivate was cut short, and even if he did borrow the power of the 2 open heaven realm cradles and diligently cultivated with the help of his space-time river at every opportunity, there was still a considerable distance left between his current cultivation and the peak of the 9th order. The reason Mu gifted Yang Kai with her space-time river was most likely in hopes that Yang Kai could borrow its power in order to break through the shackles of the open heaven realm method and reach the mysterious next realm in one step. As long as he could reach that realm, defeating Mo would not be an issue. But right now, the situation was that Yang Kai's cultivation was still a great distance from the peak of the 9th order, and even if he did receive Mu's gift, it was impossible for him to make a breakthrough in such a short amount of time. Mu's gift would undoubtedly help boost the power of his Tao strengths greatly, but it could not help to grow his cultivation. Mu might have considered that, or she might not have. Regardless, she had already done all that she could. As one of the 10 martial ancestors, she had left absolutely everything she had behind for her juniors of the human race. After working out Mu's plans, Yang Kai calmed his mind and summoned his own space-time river directly inside of Mu's. If Mu's space-time river was like a coiling grand dragon, then Yang Kai's space-time river was like a little snake. At the very best, it would be a big python. There was simply no contest. However, when Yang Kai's space-time river appeared, the waters stirring fiercely around him began to gather around it and merged into it, increasing the size and volume of Yang Kai's space-time river. Yang Kai could not help but grunt as his mind felt dizzy from the phenomenon. He was almost overwhelmed by all of the mysterious sensations that were crashing down on him, as if to drown out his very being. The space-time river was a condensation of many Tao strengths with space-time Tao strength as its foundation, and the river's water was all a manifestation of those Tao strengths. With the recognition of Mu's many shadows, Yang Kai did not feel any resistance when he was refining her space-time river, but its mass was simply too great, a manifestation of Mu's great attainments and insights into all the grand Taos, and all of it was being stuffed into Yang Kai. A sense of crisis came over him at that instant. Yang Kai realized that if he failed to withstand the impact of these Tao strengths, something terrible would happen to him. Silavin. So, overall, for Mu and Mo's story, Mu and Mo met beforehand. A piece of Mu's space-time river got caught behind the gate. Mo met the other 9 through Mu and they became close enough to be called Little 11th or Xiao Shi. While fighting the war, Mo tried to help out and corrupted his allies and enemies. The 10 found out that they fucked up and planned to seal it. Mu made a plan on how to do it. After the war, she would take Mo around and sightsee. Meanwhile, the other 9 would build the Grand Restriction. Once it was time, she led Mo inside and they trapped it. Mo, unhappy, started the Great War of that era in an attempt to free itself. I guess, during that time, the 10 agreed on this lie to say that they met Mo instead of Mu freeing Mo, else the other humans would target Mu in anger. Sometime later, war got pushed back to create the spiritless land. Mu went into the Grand Restriction. I believe she was trying to find the missing part of her space-time river. There, she found out that a part of Mo was still inside the gate. Doubt she was able to open the gate fully, but she found a better way to seal away its strength in hopes of defeating Mo anyways. She found out that she can't go above the open heaven realm. Since the space-time river is connected to one's life and death, she made the preparations to help the next guy get stronger. She had to kill herself. Else, the space-time river would not be able to split from her and be left behind. Well, that's how I made sense of the story so far. Marshall Peak. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5980. It's you, Marshall Peak. Young Kai had a nagging feeling that if he failed to withstand the onslaught of Tao strengths washing over him right now, he would become part of the Tao strengths, and both space-time rivers would collapse. To be one with the Tao, a strange thought occurred to young Kai. This is an obstacle in the path of cultivation. All is well if I make it through, but if we don't, all is lost. So, this is the hurdle that must be faced when one reaches the pinnacle of the martial Tao. He quickly used the power of the soul-warming lotus to protect his consciousness. The situation improved ever so slightly, but the soul-warming lotus, which had been infallible in the past, could not be of any decisive help this time around. If one were to describe Mu's final gift as a feast, then the soul-warming lotus was stomach medicine. In the past, whenever young Kai's soul was threatened by outside forces, the soul-warming lotus would keep it well protected. It ensured that young Kai's soul did not get destroyed and his consciousness remained intact. However, that was not the case with Mu's gift. The Tao strengths within her space-time river were not poison. On the contrary, they were the greatest of supplements. The situation came down to whether young Kai could digest everything he had been given or not. The soul-warming lotus could not do much in this situation, as it was young Kai who took the initiative to refine and absorb everything inside Mu's space-time river. It was up to him to take the many Tao strengths in for himself. Young Kai's space-time river, which had been like a snake earlier, was rapidly expanding. As it grew bigger, its speed of devouring and refining increased as well. A sudden surge of pressure made young Kai's skin split apart and blood poured out at once. It was hard for him to withstand everything with his current strength. Not daring to hesitate for even a breath, a sonorous dragon roar rang out and a massive dragon manifested. Now that young Kai had assumed his dragon form, the burden on his body eased a lot. However, the shining golden light of the divine dragon looked different now. The concentrated Tao strength circled young Kai's dragon form in an attempt to transform him into Tao strengths, but his dragon scales tensed up to block the encroachment. Dragon roars kept ringing out inside the meandering space-time river. Meanwhile, outside the space-time river, Mo growled softly as his source pieces which had been suppressed and sealed in the past were returning to him. His power was increasing at an alarming rate. While young Kai was struggling with himself, Mo calmly observed the situation occurring inside the space-time river. The source pieces he regained were the ones that had been taken away from him in the past, so he was simply reabsorbing them now. Still, he had not fully regained everything yet. Instead of hatred or resentment though, Mo merely had a complicated look on his face. Just as he had said in his final conversation with Mu, although his mere existence brought harm, since he had gained sentience, he had the right to fight to survive. It was not fair for him to be locked behind a door forever. Black ink strength was the root of his existence, and his consciousness had simply emerged from it. Even without Mo, something else that was similar would have come out of the darkness eventually. I should thank you, Mo murmured as he cupped his fist lightly, reabsorbing all of the remaining source pieces. In the past, he could barely control his own strength as it had grown beyond his ability to manipulate. However, young Kai's earlier efforts had sealed over 30% of his source strength behind the profound source gate. Although this weakened Mo's maximum strength, it came with the silver lining of granting him far better control of what strength remained. Thus, in Mo's current state, he was even more threatening than when he was at the peak of his power. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion directed at the river as he snarled, "Come out." He did not want anyone to touch what Mu left behind. Previously, to protect the primordial world from destruction, Mo even voluntarily left the primordial world and jumped out of the space-time river as he feared that his overwhelming strength would destroy it. The space-time river was the final piece of Mu that remained. A dragon roar escaped from the space-time river. Yang Kai, who was busy refining the Tao strengths, suddenly felt something grabbing onto him to drag him out of the river. He did not sense Mo's presence, but he was certain it was the latter's doing. All along, Yang Kai had been curious to know the extent of Mo's power, about what the legendary creation realm was like. At last, Yang Kai personally experienced just how terrifying Mo's might was. Mo's strength remained this immense despite the two of them being separated by two space-time rivers. Without the space-time rivers, Yang Kai estimated that he, a ninth-order master and a divine dragon, would not be able to withstand more than 3 of Mo's attacks before he perish. I can't let him drag me out. There was a chance for him to put up a fight if he remained hidden inside Mu's space-time river, but if he did get pulled out, he was doomed to die. Yang Kai knew what he had to do, and with a roar, he began harnessing the strength of the space-time rivers in a frenzied manner to attempt to cut off the force that was constraining him. Even though the force came from outside the rivers, it could not be cut off so easily. Furthermore, Yang Kai could not wield his full strength in his present condition. His space-time river was busy refining the Tao strengths from Mu's river, and as the complex and mysterious mix of Tao strength surged, much of his focus was diverted to protecting his soul to avoid being refined into Tao strengths himself. Both parties had their reasons for holding back, so for the moment, it was a stalemate. Outside the river, Mo's eyes flashed with surprise. He did not think that Yang Kai would be able to put up a fight, but he doubled down and called out impatiently, "Come out on your own, or else, I don't mind heading in myself." Mo did not want to destroy the final memory he had of Mu. He knew that some shadows of Mu remained inside the space-time river, so he wanted to preserve them. If he entered the space-time river, he was undoubtedly going to inflict irreparable harm and the shadows could very well be destroyed. This was not an outcome he could accept. However, all Mo received in response was even more ferocious dragon roars that came from within the river. Mo's eyes flashed with displeasure. "How stubborn. I'm giving you one last chance. I can promise you that once this battle is over, I'll give the humans a great territory where they can carry on living free of the corruption from black ink strength, which will never enter that great territory." This was the most it was willing to compromise. Mu was gone and the remaining humans no longer mattered to him. He was only willing to give the humans the space of a single great territory for their race to survive for the sake of protecting Mu's space-time river. "In your dreams." The dragon roar exploded out of the space-time river. Through the restriction of the Tao strengths, Mo could vaguely see a pair of large golden eyes staring in its direction. "Foolish impudence." Mo coldly snorted in response. He then took a step forward to enter the space-time river. However, as soon as he stepped into the river, the water surged and the power of all the Tao strengths rushed about to block his path. He had to pause outside the river instead. It looked as if Mo was stuck outside the river as endless waves crashed down upon him, but he was still slowly making his way forward. Mo could not be stopped. Yang Kai's expression hardened. He had refined quite a lot of the Tao strengths from Mu's space-time river in a short span of time and strengthened his own space-time river greatly. He was even able to use a bit of the strength from Mu's river itself, but even so, it was not his strength so he could not wield it freely. He had no way of keeping Mo out if the latter chose to force his way in. Soon, Yang Kai made up his mind. Since he could not keep Mo out, he was not going to even try. The space-time river was a mysterious place made up of the solidified Grand Taos with space-time Tao strength as its foundation. Even if Mo entered the river, it would not be easy for him to locate Yang Kai. The only thing Yang Kai could do now was to avoid Mo's attacks while doing his best to refine the river and strengthen himself. As long as he could grow powerful enough, he could put up a fight against Mo. Just as Yang Kai prepared himself for this final gambit, Mo, who was busy pushing his way into the river, abruptly turned his head around and looked over his shoulder. He had sensed something strange. A brief moment later, a spark of white light appeared in the distance where countless masters from the Black Ink clan were stationed. The white light shrouded a figure which was traveling at astonishing speed. Everywhere this figure passed, all of the Black Ink clansmen turned into a sea of black blood, be they simple soldiers or royal lords. In just a flash, the white light arrived at the space-time river and Zhong Ruoshi's figure appeared. She looked around and immediately established the situation, her eyes flashing darkly as they fixed on Mo. When their eyes met, Mo froze in place. He did not expect a master like her to exist. Based on the information he had, the strongest humans were only the Ninth Order masters, and even among their other allies, the strongest were merely giant spirit gods. Yet, the woman who just arrived had an aura that seemed even stronger than that of a giant spirit god. When Mo sensed the clean and pure strength of the new arrival, his expression suddenly contorted as he roared, "It's you." He recognized the source of that strength. Zhong Ruoshi understood what Mo meant. When the burning light and serene glimmer's strength finally harmonized in the chaotic dead territory, the memories of her Heaven's Order bloodline began awakening, so she was not completely clueless about the events of the ancient past. Thus, when she heard what Mo said, she coolly replied, "Yes, and no. It is. It's you." Mo's expression had changed rather drastically. Even when Yang Kai suppressed and sealed over 30% of his source, he took everything in stride and could even thank the latter. However, when Mo saw Zhong Ruoshi, the darkness hidden deep within him overtook everything else. He leapt out of the space-time river and murderously flew over to Zhong Ruoshi, but all of a sudden, he stopped and shook his head as he muttered, "No. That can't be." Black ink strength continued to surge through him before he suddenly lifted his head and leveled a vicious glare at Zhong Ruoshi and bellowed, "No, it is you." Mo behaved as if he had lost his mind and he began to mumble and contradict himself, seemingly completely out of sorts. All of a sudden, he flashed forwards and reappeared in front of Zhong Ruoshi, sending his fist flying as he roared, "Why? Martial Peak!" Martial Peak, Chapter 5981, Light and Darkness, Martial Peak. When the gate formed, primordial light and primordial darkness came into existence. From then on, their paths differed entirely. The primordial light signified all that was good and wonderful in the universe, and as soon as it was born, it left and became the colors of everything in existence. On the other hand, the primordial darkness remained suppressed and sealed behind the gate. Time went on, and even when it developed its own consciousness, it could not escape. It was stuck in an endless sea of darkness and loneliness. Even the primordial darkness craved the light. If it had not been for Mu's pity and its own persistent efforts, it would still be suppressed and sealed inside the gate right now, with no hope of ever getting out. Why? We both came into existence together, so why did the primordial light get to leave while I, the darkness, had to remain in isolation? Mo sent his fist crashing down at Zhong Ruoshi, but his interrogative cry for an answer was not directed at her, it was directed at the heavenly way which had been so unfair. Zhong Ruoshi's Heaven's Order sword rose to block Mo's furious strike which sent her flying away in a flash of white light. A mere breath later, she flew back and stood in front of Mo, her brow furrowed as she studied him. She could sense that there was something amiss about Mo's present state. Just as Mo had previously said to Mu and the humans had made the right choice when they suppressed and sealed him inside the primordial heaven's source ground restriction. As his power grew, his consciousness was barely able to control his own power. If Mu and the other humans had not suppressed and sealed him, everything would have already been wiped from existence. Yang Kai traversed across over 2,000 universe worlds and suppressed and sealed about a third of Mo's source strength. Although this weakened Mo's maximum power, it proved to be of great help to Mo as well, for he was now able to have full control over his strength. However, when Mo saw Zhong Ruoshi and sensed her power which entirely opposed its own, black ink strength consumed his mind. Light and darkness had always been opposing forms of existence. The separation of the gate was the only reason why both came into existence at the same time. Now that both of these opposing powers stood before each other, it turned into a battle that would not end until one was vanquished. Black ink strength surged and gathered into an endless sea that seemed to drown out the entire void before charging straight at Zhong Ruoshi and completely shrouding her. Zhong Ruoshi's wings flickered behind her as her Heaven's Order sword lightly tapped the spot at her feet. All at once, light burst forth and vanquished the spreading darkness. However, Mo seized this chance to draw nearer, swinging both his fists down at Zhong Ruoshi. She blocked with her sword but was once again sent tumbling. After her many years of hard cultivation back in the chaotic dead territory, her power had grown by leaps and bounds thanks to her Heaven's Order bloodline as well as the power of the sun's burning light and moon's serene glimmer. In terms of pure prowess alone, she was stronger than a giant spirit god and no royal lord could withstand more than 3 attacks from her. That being said, now that she was up against Mo's frenzied attacks, she was at a complete disadvantage and could not even hold her ground against him. The primordial light had left as soon as it came into existence. It then split the power of yin and yang from itself. Afterwards, it crashed into what would become the divine spirit ancestral land and brought forth the many divine spirits and a human woman who possessed the Heaven's Order bloodline. If Zhongruo she could have gathered the pure power of yin and yang, and all of the divine spirits, then with the help of the Heaven's Order bloodline, she could have brought forth the full power of the primordial light once more. Alas, too many divine spirits had perished, and the surviving ones numbered far too few in comparison to their peak. Even if Zhongruo she wanted to try and bring forth the true power of the primordial light, there was no way for her to accomplish that. In other words, the strength she possessed now was incomplete. However, Black Ink's strength was incomplete as well. Zhongruo she could sense the many gaps in Mo's source. Nevertheless, even in this state, Mo was still the one with the upper hand as he had continued to grow stronger over millions of years. After just a brief exchange, Zhongruo she knew full well that she was not Mo's equal. She could only hold out for another half-hour or so before she would be defeated. And, from the ruthless, murderous look on Mo's face right now, if she were to be defeated, death was the only outcome that awaited her. She had no choice. Zhongruo she let out a soft sigh, and after blocking yet another one of Mo's attacks, she raised her hand and made a grabbing motion as she cried out, "Come." A devastating battle had broken out outside the primordial heaven's source grand restriction. When Zhongruo she was around, her strength alone had been enough to deter the Black Ink clan, making them fearfully hide in the darkness. However, once she left, the Black Ink clan sensed that their Supreme One had regained its power, so they jumped into action. They emerged from the darkness and challenged the small stone race army. All at once, brutal fights exploded across the void. The small stone race army numbered in the hundreds of millions, but the Black Ink clan army that emerged from the endless darkness far surpassed even that. This was the result of Mo's accumulation over millions of years, so it was impossible to imagine just how many masters from the Black Ink clan there were right now. There was no lack of royal lords either. Faced with such a massive army, the human race army, which only numbered a couple tens of millions, was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. It was only now that the humans realized just how ridiculous their crusade was. If the human race had to face off against that many masters from the Black Ink clan alone, they had no chance of winning. Thankfully, Zhongruo she brought the small stone race army with her. Hundreds of millions of small stone race soldiers bore the brunt of the battle, so the humans had a fighting chance. Though the human race army was far smaller in number, it consisted entirely of elite masters whose strength could not be underestimated. Under Mi Jinglun's command, the human army moved in an organized fashion to attack the Black Ink clan and grind down their power. If someone from the Black Ink clan was targeted by the humans, their fate was sealed as they had no means of escaping. The humans had grown stronger too and had dozens of Ninth Order masters among their ranks. Furthermore, Wu Kuang no longer needed to control the primordial heaven's source grand restriction, and thus, the terror of the heaven-devouring battle law was unleashed for all to see. Relying on the heritage of a peak Ninth Order master, Wu Kuang weaved through the Black Ink clan army alone and killed all in his path. Even the royal lords could not stop him. The situation with the 2 giant spirit gods had changed as well. At the start of the battle, they had to guard the opening at the primordial heaven's source grand restriction and had been besieged by swarms of royal lords as a result. Now that the primordial heaven's source grand restriction was no more, they were no longer pinned down. Nothing held RDA and Ara back anymore, so they worked together to rampage through the Black Ink clan army. Everywhere they went, they crushed the enemy in their path. Furthermore, there were also the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters. These 8 were scattered across the Black Ink clan army as they slaughtered their opponents. Though it looked as if they were fighting separately, their auras remained connected in a battle formation that could bolster the strength of any one of them at any moment. Some of the more arrogant royal lords had suffered due to ignorance and died from a single blow from them as a result. Even though the royal lords might be as powerful as the Ninth Order small stone race masters, their opponent could borrow the strength of their fellow masters at any time, completely blindsiding the royal lords. In this, the fiercest battle to have ever taken place in human history, huge swaths of soldiers from the small stone race and Black Ink clan died every second. The divine spirits who received the great sun and great moon marks from Young Kai weaved through the battlefield to wield the power of the two marks. Each time they did so, yellow and blue light would shoot out from the rocks left behind by the fallen small stone race members. The two lights merged and turned into dazzling purifying light that killed scores of the Black Ink clan army. At the same time, it cleared the Black Ink strength left behind by the deaths of the Black Ink clansmen, thus changing the environment of the battlefield. The human race army kept snaking their way around the battlefield without ever coming to a stop, as they would be surrounded by the Black Ink clan if they did. The situation was dire and fraught with tension. Even an old veteran like Mi Jing Lun could not predict how this battle would ultimately go. The armies on both sides were too great in numbers. The battle had to proceed for some time before the chances of victory grew clearer. The human race and the small stone race armies simply had to work together to persistently slaughter their enemy and fight to emerge victorious. Everyone knew that this was the final battle. If they won, peace would return to all the lands, but if they lost, the humans had come to terms with the outcome of a defeat. All they could do now was give their all for one last time. Even though the humans focused on the outskirts of the battlefield, they were still under a lot of pressure. Now and then, the Black Ink clan army would try to cut them off, and they would have to carve out a path for themselves through blood and slaughter. One after another, numerous warships exploded and the human race masters died alongside them. Amidst this battlefield, even the divine spirits were at risk of peril. A clear phoenix cry echoed through the void as the 30 or so different colored phoenixes transformed into their true forms and spread their wings. They were the only remaining clansmen of the Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clansmen were carefully guarding the giant parasol tree in their center, their sacred treasure. They had not used their sacred treasure in any of their precious battles, as it was the foundation of their existence. All of the Phoenix clan came from the immortal parasol tree. However, this was the final battle, so the Phoenix clan no longer held back. A white phoenix, together with its clansmen, sat on the parasol tree and wielded the power of the sacred treasure, causing space to twist and contort. The contortions circled the human race army, and as the space rippled, the humans vanished. At the very next breath, the human race army emerged in a completely different part of the battlefield where the situation was dire. The small stone race army's defense lines were on the verge of breaking. However, the Black Ink clan had been caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the human race army, and soon, the situation stabilized as the Black Ink clan suffered heavy casualties. Once again, space rippled. With the help of the power of the Phoenix clan and the immortal parasol tree, the human race army shuttled the void to different parts of the battlefield to stop the Black Ink clan's frenzied attempts to break through the front lines. Nevertheless, the Phoenix clan's aid could not be sustained forever. After numerous uses of their strength, they could no longer maintain their true forms and reverted back to their human forms. The immortal parasol tree then weakened and dimmed. Without the blessing of the immortal parasol tree, the humans lost their ability to freely traverse the battlefield. Worse, what they had done earlier drew the attention of countless masters from the Black Ink clan, and now, the Black Ink clan charged at the humans in a bid to seek vengeance by wiping them out for good. Dragon roars then rang out as the Dragon clan combined their strength and summoned the Crystal Palace. Similarly, numerous sacred treasures were summoned across the battlefield. These were the foundation of the various divine spirit clans, and every single one of them had gone through countless years of accumulation and refinement. The divine spirits would not summon them unless their very existence was threatened. Martial Peak. Martial Peak, Chapter 5982, 9 Palaces Formation. Martial Peak. The divine spirits harnessed the power of their sacred treasures to aid the human race army in the fight to slaughter their common enemy. There were also 2 giant spirit gods and 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters thundering across the battlefield. Meanwhile, the small stone race army, which numbered hundreds of millions, staunchly held the front lines. As a result, compared to the small stone race and the humans, the Black Ink clan suffered far greater casualties on the battlefield. At some point, the human race masters began to see glimmers of hope for a victorious outcome. Alas, their hopes were soon dashed. The 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters who had been busy exterminating the enemy seemed to have been summoned by someone. With their aura connected, they charged through the Black Ink clan army and headed deep within the darkness. Soon, they disappeared from sight. No one knew where they went exactly. However, Zhong Ruoshi had gone off in that direction earlier, and terrifying shockwaves were now rippling out from that area. Atop the tattered Puoyang Pass, Mi Jinglun's heart sank as he realized that Zhong Ruoshi must have encountered some kind of trouble. Based on the strength Zhong Ruoshi exhibited earlier, the only threat against her had to be Mo. The primordial heaven's source grand restriction had been destroyed and Mo had awakened. Thus, the battle reached its final, most critical climax. The departure of the 8 Ninth Order small stone races greatly eased the pressure on the Black Ink clan. The 8 of them had focused on killing off territory lords and royal lords, with many of the latter suffering or even dying to the targeted attacks. Now that the Ninth Order small stone race masters left the battlefield, there were only the 2 giant spirit gods remaining, and Rda and Ra could not kill off the royal lords as swiftly as the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters. In the end, size was the deciding factor. Naturally, the Ninth Order small stone race masters were weaker than the giant spirit gods, but they were the same size as humans and could move around deftly. Any royal lord they had their eyes on could not escape from them. The same could not be said for the giant spirit gods. They were too massive, and though their strength was unparalleled, they were not nearly as nimble or flexible. Each time they attacked, large swaths of the Black Ink clansmen would die, but those who reacted in time could still escape. Thus, now that the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters left the battlefield, the royal lords were a lot less hindered and could do much more, such as grouping up to besiege the human race army. The Black Ink clan realized that even though the small stone race army made up the majority on the battlefield, the humans were the true driving force behind the battle. Furthermore, compared to the hundreds of millions of small stone race soldiers, it was easier to wipe out the humans, who only numbered in the tens of millions. As long as they killed off all the humans, they would emerge victorious, regardless of the casualties they suffered. All at once, the human race army was under great pressure as they became the primary targets of the Black Ink clan. Deep inside the void, the intense battle between Zhong Ruoshi and Mo continued. It was the first time that the primordial light and darkness were together again since the dawn of creation, and as they clashed, the universe seemed to shatter and break. Mo seemed to have lost all reason as the fury that built up throughout all the eons poured out at once, leaving Zhong Ruoshi with barely any room to fight back. From a distance, the light and darkness could be seen clashing, with the ocean of darkness keeping the light completely surrounded. Only a feeble flicker of light could be seen coming from the center of the conflict. Darkness was constantly clawing at the light, and it looked as if the latter would be extinguished at any moment. Despite having over 30% of his source suppressed and sealed, Mo's might was still immeasurable and impossible to imagine. At the very least, he was more than what Zhong Ruoshi could handle. Earlier on, she estimated that she could hold out for half an hour, but now that they were well and truly engaged, she realized she had underestimated her opponent. The power of the primordial light had been dispersed, much of it disappearing with the death of the divine spirits. All that was left were the Heaven's Order bloodline and the power of the yin and yang. Therefore, the primordial light had lost even more of its strength than Mo. As the fight went on, Mo grew fiercer. Black Ink's strength surged and it looked as if he was on the verge of completely devouring Zhong Ruoshi. Zhong Ruoshi was at a great disadvantage, and her situation only eased once she summoned the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters over. They left the main battlefield and swiftly headed straight over to Zhong Ruoshi. From a distance, their connected auras linked up with Zhong Ruoshi's, and a battle formation was instantly formed. Previously, the 8 trigrams formation formed by the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters had stunned the human race masters, but if they saw what was happening now, they would have no words to describe their shock and awe. Zhong Ruoshi and the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters formed a 9 palaces formation, the most powerful of all battle formations. Zhong She acted as the core while the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters formed the base. All at once, Ruoshi's power soared and she was no longer cornered without any means of fighting back. The flash of light expanded amid the darkness and broke free of its restraints. It now had the power to fight back and cover a greater area in brightness. Mo sensed this change and grew even more furious, unleashing even more concentrated black ink strength from his body. The two continued to clash, and each time light and darkness collided, darkness would spread out behind Mo, while light and the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters followed closely behind Zhong Ruoshi. Time and time again, the two smashed against each other, neither side showing any signs of backing down. With each clash, the void crumbled and shattered. A battle of such immense power had never occurred before, and it would never occur again. This was a battle between the primordial forces of existence. The intense fight went on for hours, with no side able to overwhelm the other. With the help of the battle formation with her small stone race personal guard, Zhong Ruoshi could finally oppose Mo on even footing. Nevertheless, this was merely a battle formation and not her own strength. The prolonged fight not only continued to add to the pressure that Zhong Ruoshi faced, but even the Ninth Order small stone race masters were struggling. The Ninth Order small stone race masters had tough bodies, weaker than Yang Kai's divine dragon physique, but not by much. Under normal circumstances, they would not be facing any issues. However, the long and intense fight proved to be a burden that was slowly exceeding their ability to bear. Cracks began to appear on the bodies of the Ninth Order small stone race masters, and as Zhong Ruoshi and Mo continued to clash, these cracks grew. Soon, the cracks weaved across their bodies like spiderwebs. It could be seen that once the cracks reached a certain point, even the Ninth Order small stone race masters would crumble into a pile of rocks. These small stone races were Ruoshi's personal guard. They had been groomed with great difficulty and were intrinsically connected to her, so she could sense the state of every single one of them. Therefore, when she picked up on their injuries, she realized that things were looking bad for them. She was only able to fight Mo because she had formed a battle formation with her small stone race personal guard, but if something happened to the latter, the battle formation would collapse, even if only one of them died. Once that happened, it would be impossible for her to hold her own against Mo. Once this thought occurred to her, Zhong Ruoshi changed her strategy. Instead of confronting Mo head-on, she took a defensive stance to drag the fight out. She did not know what her sir was doing now, but all along, she knew that he was capable of doing things no one else could, and she held strongly to this belief. Sir can always make a miracle happen even in a hopeless situation. Therefore, regardless of what he was doing now, she had to try and buy him enough time. Her new strategy worked. When two opponents were evenly matched, one could not accomplish much if the other was determined to prolong the fight. The intense fight turned into a chase instead. Ruoshi and her 8 small stone race personal guard kept flitting about, and even though Mo wielded his immense power wildly, he could not pin down and suppress her. Mo, who had already lost his senses, became even more incensed, releasing bestial snarls and roars in an unending cacophony. When Mo first emerged from the space-time river, he looked no different from a regular human, apart from his black ink strength. However, when Zhong Ruoshi showed up, the black ink strength surged and overtook his mind. At this point, Mo no longer looked human. Ruoshi's appearance and subsequent actions seemed to have driven him mad. All of a sudden, Mo stopped chasing Zhong Ruoshi. As Zhong Ruoshi puzzled over this, Mo abruptly turned around and charged towards the space-time river. Ruoshi's expression stiffened. Although Mo had been so agitated that he lost his senses, his battle instincts remained. Since Zhong Ruoshi was equal in strength to him, he could not get rid of her, so he changed his target to Yang Kai, who was still within the space-time river. Even in his blurry state, he was still determined to protect the space-time river. He was not going to let anyone touch the final trace of Mu. Upon seeing that Mo was turning back, Zhong Ruoshi swiftly chased after him. Light flashed as she stopped him and engaged in a frontal battle again. After a brief skirmish, Ruoshi repeated her old tactic and quickly retreated. This led to a furious Mo pursuing her in the opposite direction of the space-time river. Mo kept up the chase for a while, but when his efforts proved fruitless, he turned around again. Once again, Ruo she caught up to him. By doing this over and over again, she managed to occupy Mo's attention. Nonetheless, Zhong Ruo she knew this was only a temporary measure. She could tell that Mo was not in the right state of mind at the moment, which was why he did not notice what she was doing with her fairly crude strategy. However, with each clash, the power of the light would wipe out some of the darkness, and similarly, the darkness would devour the light. In other words, both light and darkness were weakening each other each time they collided. Zhong Ruo she could clearly sense that she was greatly weakened by the many hours of fighting, and the same was true of Mo. Once the black ink strength was weakened to a certain extent, Mo would most likely regain his senses, and when that time came, she would no longer be able to use this strategy to keep him occupied. Furthermore, Ruo she was even more worried by the fact that the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters would not be able to hold out much longer. Their bodies were covered in cracks now, and it looked as if they would crumble at the slightest touch. She was doing her best to keep the head-on confrontations with Mo to a minimum, but if she wanted to stop Mo from heading to the space-time river, she had to resort to things that she knew she should not. Now that things had come to this, Zhong Ruo she had no other choice. She could only do her best to keep Mo occupied as she fervently hoped that Yang Kai sped up whatever he was doing. Otherwise, once her personal guards could no longer hold out anymore, she would not be able to stop Mo alone. Martial Peak. Martial Peak, Chapter 5983, 9th level, Martial Peak. Within Mu's spacetime river, Yang Kai was shrouded in his own spacetime river as he used it to greedily devour everything around him. The river was made out of Dao strengths. Every single undercurrent and wave surged with Dao strength, and as time passed, Yang Kai's spacetime river grew bigger while Mu's river shrank. It was entirely by chance, but it could not be denied that Yang Kai and Mu had walked the same path. This gave meaning to Mu's countless years of patience and perseverance. Due to trying to open the profound source gate in the past, Mu's spacetime river was no longer complete, which cut off her future path. She could not explore the deeper mysteries of the martial Dao, therefore, she passed down her hopes to those who came after her. Among all the hidden hands she left behind, her spacetime river was the final gift she had to offer. However, if a person wanted to harness this gift to make themselves more powerful, it would take time. Perhaps even Mu would not have expected Yang Kai to be approved by so many of her remnant shadows. Under normal circumstances, if black ink strength had the irrefutable advantage in any of the 3,000 universe worlds and there was no hope of suppressing and sealing that particular source piece, there would be no reason for Yang Kai to waste any time on that universe world. Nevertheless, during Yang Kai's previous travels, he did his best to find every single remaining shadow of Mu. He wanted to save them all from their suffering and take them away from the universe worlds. Each one that disappeared signified that the Mu of that time approved of Yang Kai. After moving through some 2,700 universe worlds, Yang Kai received approval from over 2,000 of them, which was a massive number. This allowed him to devour and refine Mu's spacetime river with greater efficiency. As Yang Kai's river kept expanding, his command over the many Dao strengths increased as well. The enlightenment from the many mysteries exploded in his mind. Yang Kai was deeply engrossed and could not extricate himself from what was happening inside his mind. The joy of glimpsing into the mysteries of every Grand Dao was impossibly tantalizing for any master. Grand Daos were the basis behind all existence and the ultimate goal of all cultivators. If someone were to be entirely immersed in this, there was a chance that they would forget all else and transform into Dao strengths themselves. This meant that Yang Kai's situation was tricky as well. On the one hand, he had to resist the lure of the Dao strengths, while on the other, he had to do his best to take them in to strengthen his own mastery of the Grand Daos. He tried his best to maintain the balance of refining as quickly as possible while still remaining in control over his senses, making sure to not let himself be lost in the process. All of a sudden, his mind felt as if it had received an awakening. It was as if he had broken through a barrier that had been preventing him from growing stronger. Yang Kai realized that his mastery of the Tao of Time had reached the 9th level. A master's strength was essentially divided based on their cultivation. Of the 9 orders of the open heaven realm, each higher order was much stronger than the previous. It was a clear and easy way of distinguishing between masters. However, this kind of division was not comprehensive, and there could be great disparity in power even among masters in the same order of open heaven realm. The disparity came from the difference in accumulation of each master, the power differential in the heritage of the master's small universe, as well as the master's understanding of their grand Taos. The open heaven realm involved the discovery and mastery of grand Tao. In a sense, the higher the mastery of one's grand Tao, the stronger the master. Since the dawn of existence, no one had a clear way of defining the levels of mastery of the grand Tao. Thus, Yang Kai had split the mastery of grand Taos into 9 levels based on his own growth. Superficial contact, peering through the doors, taking the initial steps, traversing a familiar path, attaining mastery through comprehensive understanding, exceeding the ordinary to reach the extraordinary, standing above all others within sight, summiting the peak, and finally shocking history and dazzling the present. This was merely his own method of division, one he shared with others, and some had adopted it. Until now, none tried to correct it. Yang Kai felt that he had differentiated them correctly. His primary grand Taos were the Tao of time and the Tao of space. These were the Tao strengths that formed the basis of the space-time river. However, despite his many opportunities and his mastery over the grand Taos, after all this time, he had only managed to cultivate the Tao of time and the Tao of space to the 8th level. All this while, Yang Kai did not know how to break through to the 9th level. However, he had a vague feeling that if his mastery of the Tao of time reached the 9th level, an indescribable change was bound to happen. Finally, as Yang Kai refined Mu's space-time river, he was able to make a breakthrough on one of his primary grand Taos, allowing it to reach the 9th level. To think it's the Tao of time first, not the Tao of space. Yang Kai had always thought it would have been the latter that would be the first to reach the 9th level of mastery. Yang Kai was a little taken aback as the Tao of space was the first one that he truly cultivated. He had his dragon source to thank for his ability to cultivate the Tao of time to its current level. The Tao of time was the bloodline talent of the dragon clan. All at once, Yang Kai gained a mysterious sense of understanding. As he lifted his hand ever so slightly within the space-time river, he seemed to be able to grab onto the flow of time. In the past, he was able to make time flow quicker within his space-time river to cultivate 10 times faster, but he could not truly control the passage of time. But he could do so now. With the increase in Yang Kai's command over the Tao of time, his dragon vein surged and he could not stop himself from raising his head and letting out a dragon roar. His dragon scales rustled as his dragon form enlarged. His dragon vein had advanced even further. This was a great surprise. However, before Yang Kai could dwell on his joy, his mastery over his other primary grand Tao broke into the 9th level as well. This time, it was the Tao of space. Once again, the mysterious sense of enlightenment flooded Yang Kai's mind. He felt his mind grow hazy. It was as if it had been stuffed full with the truth of the grand Taos, which he did not understand in the past. The truth of existence was unfolding in front of him. He quickly harnessed the strength of his soul-warming lotus, even though he was uncertain whether it would help. The clarity that poured back into his mind made him feel a little better. Now that Yang Kai's mastery of both the Tao of space and the Tao of time had reached the 9th level, his space-time river became even more massive. Previously, his space-time river looked like a blade of grass in comparison to Mu's river, which was like a tall tree. However, after all the refining he had done thus far, his river grew bigger and could now be likened to a shrub instead. While the tree was still a tree, it had grown a lot smaller. That was not the only difference. At first, Yang Kai had a hard time keeping up with his frenzied attempt to refine Mu's river to strengthen his own. The Tao strengths of space and time formed the foundation of the river, and without a strong enough command over both, it was hard for Yang Kai to control the colossal river. It was akin to a building. If a building's foundation had only been built for 5 stories, the building ran the risk of collapsing if 10 stories were built instead. Yang Kai's command over the Taos of time and Tao of space was the foundation in this scenario, and by having a greater mastery over these 2 grand Taos, his foundation became stronger. This transformation was evident in the river's physical state. While it looked a little scattered earlier, it was now a lot more concentrated. Marshall Peak. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5984, Standstill, martial peak. With the grand Taos of space and time breaking through to the 9th level of mastery, Yang Kai's spacetime river now had a stronger foundation. Thus, it began devouring and refining Mu's spacetime river at a far quicker rate. As the frenzy of devouring and refining continued, Yang Kai's mastery over the grand Taos increased as well. Next was a breakthrough in the spear Tao. Then, a breakthrough in the sword Tao. Breakthroughs in the alchemic Tao, array Tao, and yin-yang Tao soon followed. Yang Kai's understanding of each grand Tao rose in rapid succession. The barriers were broken through and he achieved a new height of mastery. With each breakthrough, Yang Kai's mind was filled with strange and wondrous enlightenment, granting him further clarity in each grand Tao. Outside the spacetime river, light and darkness continued to clash. Both the primordial light and primordial darkness did not possess their full power anymore, but as the darkness remained whole and continued to grow over the years, Mo had become a lot more powerful than Zhongruo. This held true even when Yang Kai had used the profound source gate to suppress and seal a third of his source. Mo would have regained all of his strength and be even more powerful right now if it had not been for the many hidden hands Mu left behind. Zhongruo could only just barely challenge Mo to a fight with the help of the 9 palaces formation she formed with her 8 small stone race personal guard. In just a few hours though, the 8 small stone race masters were littered with cracks. It looked as if they could crumble into a pile of rubble at any moment now. Zhongruo tried her best to buy time, but she did not know how much longer she could continue to hold out. All she could do was fervently hope that Yang Kai could hurry up. Each time light and darkness collided, their respective powers wore down the other. Light dispelled darkness while darkness devoured light. Time and time again, Zhongruo and Mo continued to weaken each other. This was most evident in the way Ruo's white wings had dimmed and Mo seemed to have lost some of his prior madness. This is not a good sign. Zhongruo could tell that Mo, as the consciousness that sprung from primordial darkness, did not have full control over black ink strength. The years of growth and accumulation had made the power increase beyond Mo's ability to freely wield. That was the reason why her arrival bearing the strength of the primordial light had drawn out the frenzied resentment of the primordial darkness and caused Mo to lose his rationality. At the same time, Mo had an instinctive, obsessive yearning and protectiveness of Mu's spacetime river. Even his subconscious would not allow anyone to touch what Mu had left behind. As black ink strength clashed with Mo's consciousness, his actions began displaying contradicting desires. At times, he fiercely chased down Zhongruo, but at times, he turned back around to head for the spacetime river. Zhongruo relied on this dichotomy to provoke Mo and keep him occupied. However, once Mo regained his senses, it would not be so easy for her to do so. Although Mo currently possessed strength that surpassed all others, he was currently behaving like a wild beast without a sense of rationality, so Zhongruo could still deal with him by employing the right strategy. Even though Mo regaining his rationality meant that his raw power would be weaker, Zhongruo was not confident that she could stop him then. What one feared the most was often the very thing to occur. As the clashes continued, Zhongruo could sense that Mo's gaze was getting clearer. To make things worse, her personal guard could barely hold out anymore. That was not the only bad news though. Even her strength, which relied on her Heaven's Order bloodline to harmonize the powers of yin and yang, was beginning to show signs of instability. Her Heaven's Order bloodline was indeed powerful. It was the only thing that could bridge the powers granted by the burning light and serene glimmer. Thanks to Zhongruo's many years of diligent cultivation, she was finally able to reconcile the two opposing powers and draw them into her. As a result, she possessed superior strength. However, her 9th Order cultivation was still quite weak in comparison to the powers of the burning light and serene glimmer. She could not withstand a prolonged fight that involved such overwhelming power. On the other hand, Zhongruo dared not hold back in a fight against Mo. She went all out with every strike, and as the number of clashes increased, her power became more and more unstable. Her personal guards were in bad shape and her strength was becoming unstable, so she knew she did not have much time left. Even so, she never once considered retreating. Instead, her eyes filled with determination as she made a decision. After yet another ferocious clash, the two figures separated. Zhongruo, she could clearly sense that even more cracks emerged on the bodies of the 8 personal guard behind her. Her grip on the Heaven's Order sword tightened and she exhaled softly as her wings began to flap and her presence grew even more imposing. In the void opposite her, Mo stood unmoving with his head lowered. Just as Zhongruo she prepared to strike once more, Mo raised his hand to block her. "You should stop now." Zhongruo, she did not listen. Her presence continued to intensify with no signs of stopping. Nevertheless, she could not ignore Mo's present state and could not help asking, "Have you regained your rationality?" Mo raised his head and looked at her. Although his eyes showed signs of a struggle, it was no longer in a state of madness. "I have to thank you for that," he replied. Zhongruo, she knew what Mo meant. Initially, the power of primordial darkness was still too strong for Mo to bear, causing his consciousness to devolve into a frenzied state. However, as he and Zhongruo she continued to clash, the powers of light and darkness ate away at each other. Both their powers were weakened in the battle. Now that Mo's consciousness could overpower his strength, he regained some rationality. "That won't be necessary," Zhongruo she coolly replied. Mo's brows furrowed ever so slightly. "You will die if you use that attack." Mo could tell that Zhongruo she wanted to harness all of her remaining power to engage him in a final clash that would determine life or death. "You probably won't die, but you will suffer," Zhongruo she said. "That's why you should stop." "I don't wish to kill you," Mo urged. Zhongruo she showed no signs of stopping. She did not respond to Mo at all. Instead, she continued to harness her power and strength to prove her determination with her actions. Cracking sounds could be heard from the 8 behind her. With this strike, the 8 of them would turn into dust. Mo's gaze turned cold as he snarled, "If you insist on dying, I am willing to fulfill your desire for death, but have you thought about what would happen to young Kai if you died?" Zhongruo she was a little startled. "Sir would be deeply saddened by my death, right?" "That's enough for me." Zhongruo she still showed no signs of backing down. Instead, she let out a faint smile. This made Mo exasperated as he could not resist saying, "Why are human women so stubborn? You think it's worth it to die at my hands to protect him, but have you ever thought about the guilt and torture the living would have to endure? If you truly want to act in his best interests, I advise you to calm down and look at things from his perspective. You staying alive should come before everything else." Zhongruo she stared at Mo in shock this time, brimming with confusion. "What's going on? The one who wields the darkest of all powers that exist is attempting to reason with me during a life-and-death moment." She could not help but find it unbelievable, especially since Mo made a good point. Instinctively, she suddenly felt that Mo was scheming something. "Don't look at me like that," Mo curtly snorted. "I lived among you humans for more years than you have lived. We once worked together and protected each other. There was even someone very important to me once. All I wanted to do was to help her, but in the end, I was destined to ruin everything." When Mo saw what Zhongruo she was about to do, he could not help but recall his own past. "Mu must have felt great anguish when she decided to lock me up. In the end, I let her down." Mo turned towards the space-time river and said, "Why don't we just wait here? When he comes out, I will fight him." Zhongruo she frowned as she looked at Mo, too afraid to let her guard down. Mo turned back to her once more. "There's nothing for you to worry about. You are free to strike me at any given moment and engage me in a fight to the death. As you said, even if I kill you, I will suffer in the process, and when he comes out, perhaps I won't be able to hold my own against him." Zhongruo she simply could not figure out what Mo was thinking. It would indeed be great for her if she did as Mo suggested. She had enough strength to unleash a powerful final strike, and she could do so at any time, so the only one who had anything to gain by agreeing to Mo's suggestion was her. Besides, even if Mo was plotting something sinister, would she be able to stop him? If Mo is truly willing to simply stop and wait now, once Sir comes out, he and I can attack Mo together. You better not do anything rash. After hesitating for a brief moment, Zhongruo she withdrew her imposing aura. Naturally, Mo smirked as it remained standing in place. Zhongruo she nodded. The 2 masters who had been dueling in a brutal, all-out fight to the death now stood together in the void, waiting in silence. Sure enough, life was unpredictable. Zhongruo she was still on guard, so she led her 8 personal guards over to a spot between Mo and the space-time river to block Mo. Mo saw what she was doing and showed no inclination of stopping her, puzzling her even further. That being said, she had never encountered Mo before. She imagined Mo to be a brutal, sinister, and vicious existence, but after interacting with him herself, she realized that was not the case. Though confused, as Jong Ruo she stared into Mo's eyes, she had a vague inkling and could not help but ask, "What do you want to do?" Mo's gaze went past her and stared at the massive space-time river as he asked, "It's very grand and beautiful, isn't it?" Jong Ruo she did not answer Mo's question, instead frowning in doubt, "So what if it is?" "It saved me from endless darkness," Mo replied, "so, to me, it is the light. This is what she left behind, and since she has chosen a successor, I want to see what happens. If her successor can kill me, it won't be a bad way for me to die." After a pause, Mo continued with a heavy heart, "When it comes down to it, I did something I shouldn't have. It only stands to reason that I pay the price for it. If you wish to die, I can fulfill your wish for you." Jong Ruo she shot back. Mo eyed her coolly, "Only the person who gave me my new life can kill me. No one else has the right to do so." Marshall Peak. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5985, Perseverance. Marshall Peak, alas, the one who had the right to kill Mo was no longer around and nothing mattered to him anymore. Everything and everyone in existence was meaningless and he could kill them off as he desired without feeling any hesitance. Jong Ruo she and Mo stood opposite each other outside the space-time river. She remained vigilant at all times, but Mo did not do anything. He simply stared at the space-time river that cut through the void and watched as it churned. Meanwhile, the human race army was snaking its way through the large battlefield as it constantly attacked the Black Ink clan army's front lines to weaken them. The humans were actually able to make good progress. Furthermore, the small stone race army was fearlessly confronting the Black Ink clan. Many lives came to an end with every breath. A battle of this scale had never been seen before. The 3 parties out on the battlefield numbered into the billions when combined. The small stone race army consisted of hundreds of millions while the Black Ink clan army was twice as large. On the other hand, there were less than 20 million human race masters left, which was not even a tenth of either of the other 2. Despite being much lower in numbers, the humans came out on top when it came to the average power. Only 4th Order masters and above could directly join in the crusade, and after many millennia of cultivation, the human race now had a large number of 7th Order and 8th Order masters. In this respect, neither the small stone race nor the Black Ink clan could compare to the humans. Even though they had massive numbers, weak soldiers who could not contribute much made up most of their ranks. This was especially true of the Black Ink clan. Whenever the human race army crossed paths with large groups of the Black Ink clan's cannon fodder, all of the latter would be exterminated in great sweeping waves of death. Nevertheless, being so few was still an undeniable disadvantage. Although the human race army was able to attack the Black Ink clan and wipe them out in large groups, they could not persist for long. The humans started this battle, but it was the small stone race army that enabled them to keep going. If Jong Ruo she had not brought the small stone race reinforcements over, the humans would have been defeated the moment the primordial heavens source grand restriction broke. These were sorrowful times. Many of the small stone race soldiers died and turned into rocks and pebbles that littered the battlefield. The divine spirits who had the great sun and great moon marks kept using the power of the marks to draw out the power of yin and yang inside the remains of the small stone race who had been sacrificed. These powers were then transformed into purifying light which not only killed many Black Ink clansmen, but also purified the environment of the battlefield. It was thanks to this that the humans and the small stone race could still put up a fight against the Black Ink clan. Initially, Rda and Ra, the 2 giant spirit gods, were able to move about with impunity. Without enough royal lords to keep them pinned down, they were completely invincible and seas of blood formed wherever they went. However, as more and more of the royal lords joined forces to besiege Rda and Ra, the latter pair slowly lost their ability to act freely. The fierce battle continued. Every few days, the human race army would retreat behind the small stone race's lines to rest and regroup before charging out again. Pure Yang Pass, which led the human race army into battle, was now a wreck. It did not look like it could hold out much longer, and the suppressing black ink fortress was in a similar state. The extreme intensity of the battle was a taxing trial for all the humans, with even the Ninth Order masters having a hard time, let alone those of lower orders. Nevertheless, the humans could not stop. This was the final confrontation, and if they backed down, total extermination was the only fate that awaited them. Therefore, all of them grit their teeth and persevered. A month after the start of the battle, the situation on the battlefield grew clearer. Jing-lun was fatigued and ashen-faced as he stood atop the worn Pyongyang Pass, his forehead covered in a layer of sweat. He had overexerted himself. As the supreme commander of the human race army, he faced the most pressure. Not only did he have to keep an eye on the situation on the battlefield to promptly make the right strategic decisions, but as a Ninth Order master, he was also in charge of controlling Pyongyang Pass to attack the enemy. At this point, he had expended so much energy that his foundation had suffered heavy damage. However, his sense of helplessness stemmed not from his exhaustion, but from the fact that the situation was not in the human race's favor. There were far too many of the Black Ink clansmen inside the primordial heavens source grand restriction, twice as many as there were small stone race soldiers, and after a month-long battle, the Black Ink clan was beginning to show signs of suppressing the former. If this continued, in less than 2 weeks, the small stone race army would be defeated. Once the small stone race army was vanquished, the humans would not be able to survive. They were bound to follow the small stone race army to their deaths. Jing-lun could not be resigned to this. The fight between the human race and the Black Ink clan began towards the end of the late ancient era and had carried on for millions of years since then. Was it going to end in tragedy for the human race? Still, there was not much he could do to change things now. In a massive battle like this, there was not a single strategy that could lead to a decisive outcome. Victory hinged on the strength of both parties. Jing-lun could not stop himself from casting a glance into the depths of the void. Over a month ago, Zhong-ruo had abruptly left the battlefield and the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters followed soon after. Nothing had been heard from them ever since. Initially, great aftershocks of an intense battle reverberated out from that part of the void, but soon, everything went silent. Even now, Jing-lun did not know what was happening over there. All he knew was that Zhong-ruo and her 8 personal guards were there. Yang Kai was there too, along with Mo. If anything could turn the tides of this battle, it had to come from that part of the void. Stay strong. We must persist. As long as the worst did not happen, they still had a shred of hope of survival. The churning of the space-time river became even more ferocious. After a month of devouring and refining Mu's space-time river, Yang Kai's space-time river had grown unimaginably large, while Mu's river, which was outside his, was turning into an empty shell. Thanks to this final gift, Yang Kai's space-time river had enlarged to the point where it could rival that of Mu's. Outside the river, Zhong-ruo and her 8 personal guards were still in a battle formation. They were intrinsically connected and kept their guards up the whole time. Thankfully, throughout this whole time, Mo did not move, he merely stood quietly and waited. At last, a resounding splash sounded and the space-time river which had meandered across the void for countless eons was completely destroyed. It was replaced by another river that was comparable to it, but the new one was churning even more ferociously and its water seemed even more forceful. This was not a sign that Yang Kai had surpassed Mu in strength. Instead, it was a result of his inability to fully control this sudden growth in strength. If Yang Kai had full control over the power of his river, it would be completely still and silent, not causing such a huge commotion like now. Zhong-ruo had to fight the urge to turn around and look, her expression grim. Just a moment ago, she clearly sensed a flash of murderous intent coming from Momo did not bother to hide it at all. Apart from the clear murderous intent, Zhong-ruo also picked up a sense of hatred and regret. As she sensed the churning of the Tao strengths behind her, she knew that Yang Kai had succeeded. Though, she had no idea what he did. Martial Peak. Martial Peak, Chapter 5986, The Might of a Creator. Martial Peak. Amidst the churning waves, Yang Kai's figure appeared as the Tao strength surged around him. Based on strength alone, he was stronger than both Mo and Zhong-ruo after their earlier fight. This was a result of his heightened mastery of Grand Daos. The clearest evidence of this was the size of his spacetime river. Yang Kai's spacetime river was comparable to the one Mu left behind, and it had grown colossal beyond imagination. A baby dragon was bound to become a divine dragon someday. Although Yang Kai's cultivation did not increase by much, his strength was leaps and bounds above what it once was. A piercing gaze shot over at him. Yang Kai immediately spotted Mo, who was standing in the distance. The abhorrence and murderous intent in its eyes were plainly visible. Mo looked a lot like Little 11th, whom Yang Kai met inside the primordial world. If Little 11th grew up as a normal human, he would resemble Mo's current appearance. Ruo Shi stood between Yang Kai and Mo with a grim and vigilant expression. Yang Kai had been busy refining Mu's final gift and knew nothing of what was happening outside the river all this while. Upon sensing Mo and Ruo Shi's present states though, he realized that they had engaged in a fight earlier. Both seemed to have walked away injured, as neither one of them felt as powerful as he expected them to be. His divine sense tingled as it spread out like a gush of water. Soon, he picked up on the situation out on the battlefield in the distance. Yang Kai's brow furrowed slightly. Compared to the situation over here, the human race army and the small stone race army were in a bleak situation. If things continued as they were, they would certainly be defeated. Ruo Shi. Yang Kai called out at once. I'm here, sir, Zhong Ruo Shi swiftly replied. Head to the battlefield and help them. Zhong Ruo Shi was startled. She figured that since Yang Kai had emerged, they could work together to take on Mo now. While she could not face off against Mo alone, if she and Yang Kai worked together, they had a good chance of winning this fight. Mo was a lot weaker now thanks to both Yang Kai's deed of suppressing and sealing his source as well as the earlier fight with Zhong Ruo Shi. Light and darkness had clashed and worn each other down. If they got rid of Mo, they would completely eradicate the threat against the 3,000 worlds. Yang Kai seemed to have deduced Zhong Ruo Shi's thoughts as he said, the human race army is the only remaining strength we have now. A victory against Mo is meaningless if they get wiped out. Go and help them at once, Ruo Shi. Leave things here to me. Zhong Ruo Shi knew that Yang Kai was right. If the human race army was entirely vanquished, then even if she and Yang Kai managed to defeat Mo, it was a pointless victory. The goal of this battle was to ensure the survival of the human race, and victory hinged on bringing the entire army to victory. She clenched her jaw and said, "Be careful, sir. I'll come back as soon as possible." After glaring viciously at Mo one last time, her wings fluttered and she turned into a streak of light before shooting off towards the battlefield. Once she left, Mo and Yang Kai were left alone in the void. A wise decision, Mo remarked. Yang Kai quirked his eyebrows. How so? She's in a poor state right now, Mo commented with a faint smile. You asked her to leave to save her life, right? Yang Kai's brow was tightly knitted. I thought I was going up against an evil being who has lost all its rationality. I didn't expect to be facing off against an intelligent opponent. This makes things a lot more challenging. With just one look, Yang Kai noticed Zhong Ruo Shi's condition. Although he did not know what would happen when the Heaven's Order bloodline harmonized the powers of yin and yang, he could tell that the 8 Ninth Order small stone race masters behind Ruo Shi were on the verge of crumbling apart. As the core of the 9 Palaces formation, she was undoubtedly shouldering the heaviest burden. If she stayed here and partook in the fight against Mo, once the 8 fell apart, Ruo Shi would be doomed once Mo found the chance to strike her down. Naturally, protecting Ruo Shi was not the only reason why Yang Kai told her to leave. The human race and the small stone race were in dire need of help too. They were bound to lose if they did not receive any outside intervention on the battlefield. Now that Zhong Ruo Shi had gone back to the battlefield, it was unlikely for her to be involved in any fight as taxing as the one against Mo earlier. As long as she was careful and ensured that her 8 personal guards did not die, she would not be in any grave danger. That being said, Yang Kai was taken aback by the current Mo. As Yang Kai said, he thought he would be facing an evil being without any sense of rationality. However, Mo was evidently able to think and act calmly. Yang Kai would much rather go up against a senseless killing machine, as it was easier to deal with an opponent like that. I'm surprised you didn't stop me from devouring and refining Mu's spacetime river, Yang Kai spoke up. While refining the gift from Mu, he was vigilant against the possibility of Mo interfering, but the latter did not do anything else after his initial attempt was interrupted. Although Zhong Ruoshi had come over in time to occupy Mo, what Yang Kai saw when he came out was simply a silent standoff between Mo and Ruoshi. It was entirely unexpected. He knew that Mo could have chosen to forcefully break away from Ruoshi, though he would have to pay a price. However, from Mo's standpoint, stopping Yang Kai from refining Mu's river had to be the primary goal, and it would have been worth paying a price to accomplish that. After hearing Yang Kai's comment, Mo lowered his eyes and let out a soft sigh. Did Mu leave something in the river to be used against me? Yang Kai nodded. You noticed that, as expected. Mu had left her space-time river for someone who would succeed her, but it was impossible to refine the entire river in the blink of an eye. During that time, Mo was bound to interfere. It was not surprising that someone with as much intelligence and foresight as Mu had considered this and left something behind inside the river to target Mo. If Mo entered her river, he would end up stumbling around the endlessness of space-time in a hazy daze and would not be able to find Yang Kai. What Mo said to Zhong Ruoshi earlier was simply for the sake of convincing her. Even if she did not try to stop him, he would not enter the river unless absolutely necessary. But without entering the river, he would not be able to locate Yang Kai, and thus, he would not be able to stop the latter from devouring and refining it. With all that Mu had set in place, Yang Kai had guaranteed success at refining the river. Mu had been wise and insightful, and naturally, Mo knew her incredibly well. After spending all those years together, both she and Mo had a thorough understanding of each other. Just as Mu predicted the possibility of Mo entering the river, Mo also figured that Mu would have left behind countermeasures to deal with him as well. It was yet another confrontation after all these years that resulted in a stalemate. Yang Kai was the only one who benefited from the situation. He had a major leap in his mastery over the 10,000 grand daos, and his spacetime river had grown to an indescribable size. Even if you obtained the power Mu left behind, so what? Mo's eyes were filled with disdain. Do you think that's enough for you to defeat me? Yang Kai smirked. Let me see what someone in the creator realm can do. As he spoke, he raised both his hands and the spacetime river beneath him began churning violently. It was as if the river turned into a rampaging dragon as the waves crashed in thunderous splashes while Dao's strength surged. All at once, scores of rope-like water dragons formed from Dao's strength shot out of the river and flew straight at Momo. Raised his fist and punched forcefully at the void. The space in front of him shattered and the myriad of void cracks that formed as a result turned into a barrier that blocked the onslaught of the water dragons. Then, Mo took a step forward and moved past the shattered space, arriving right in front of Yang Kai as he stared down at him with an indifferent expression. Your ability to wield Dao's strength is less than 1,000th of what Mu was capable of. Black ink strength rippled forth and its destructive power wrapped around Mo's fist, which came crashing down. Yang Kai's eyes hardened. He could instinctively sense the might of this punch and knew he could not allow it to make contact with him. Otherwise, death would be his only fate. The river churned and formed a layer of Dao strength that acted as a barrier. However, the Dao strength barrier only lasted for a blink of an eye before the fist shattered it apart. Thankfully, that had given Yang Kai enough time to summon his Azure Dragon Spear. Now that he had his weapon in hand, he harnessed the Dao strengths and sent his spear flying out at the fist. A gust of unstoppable power came at Yang Kai from the front and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body froze up for a brief moment before he went flying backwards. He stumbled into his river and nearly lost his grip on the spear. Weak. Mo looked down at his fist. There was a tiny white mark left behind from the Azure Dragon Spear, but it soon vanished. The invincible Azure Dragon Spear could not even scratch Mo despite Yang Kai landing a strike with all his strength. This was a clear sign of the power disparity between the two. A powerful and imposing manner did not necessarily translate into true might. A real master could easily keep his power hidden and undetectable from the outside. Yang Kai's outward display of dominance and imposingness was in fact a sign that he could not fully control the power he had. A figure stepped out of the river. It was Yang Kai who had been pushed back inside it earlier. His expression was grim. Even though he deduced that he was not strong enough to be Mo's equal right now, He did not expect their disparity to be this big. Is this the might of someone in the creator realm? Yang Kai had suppressed and sealed over 30% of Mo's source, so what would Mo be able to do if that had not been the case? His earlier punch would have probably been enough to kill me. While Yang Kai was caught up in these thoughts, Mo was already storming over. Even though Yang Kai used the Tao strengths of the river to form barriers and restraints, it was not enough to stop Mo. Apart from black ink strength, yet another mysterious power was swirling around Mo. It was most likely creation force. All of the Tao strengths that came near Mo would instantly shatter without accomplishing anything. As soon as Yang Kai managed to steady himself, Mo arrived in front of him, his fist flying out again, aiming to pulverize his opponent. Yang Kai was not about to let that happen. Waves rippled out of the azure dragon spear with Tao strengths circling it as it moved forward once more. Mo did not change his attack, but the simple blow was hiding an unfathomable strength that allowed it to easily deflect Yang Kai's attack before closing in on its target. Martial Peak. Martial Peak, Chapter 5987, Absorbing Tao Strengths, Martial Peak. In that moment of crisis, Yang Kai's azure dragon spear suddenly vanished from his hand as he stowed it away. Following that, he grabbed Mo's shoulder with both hands and flung himself backwards in an attempt to drag Mo into the space-time river. The short exchange just now made it clear to Yang Kai that he was unable to hold his own against Mo right now. Since that was the case, he needed to bring the fight to an advantageous environment for him, and the space-time river was an excellent choice. Yang Kai was confident that as long as he was able to drag Mo into his space-time river, he would be able to unleash even more powerful attacks that could perhaps be enough to deal with this enemy. However, before Yang Kai could do anything else, Mo kicked him. Yang Kai felt his chest caving in as he fell into the river. Waist. Mo stood above the river. The torrential waves fiercely charged at Mo, but they would die out once they were within 10 steps of him, filling his eyes with disappointment. Mu's successor is weaker than I thought. He's not even stronger than that woman earlier who wielded a portion of the primordial light's power. At the very least, she'd been able to cause a bit of trouble for me, but Mu's successor is nothing more than a child. As Mo quietly eyed the space-time river beneath him, he lightly raised his hand. In that case, I shall destroy it all. A gust of pure and concentrated black ink strength unlike any that had been seen before poured out towards the space-time river as the might of a creator began to emerge. Any part of the river that was touched by black ink strength immediately showed signs of being corrupted by it. The river was made out of Tao strengths. Ordinarily, black ink strength from the Black Ink clan was only capable of corrupting living beings. However, as the source of black ink strength, Mo was even capable of corrupting Tao strengths. As Yang Kai's body sank downwards into the river, his heart sank along with it. With just 2 strikes, he had a clear understanding of just how powerful Mo was. I definitely won't be able to defeat him. Yang Kai coughed lightly and the stench of blood filled his mouth. He was now a divine dragon with thick skin and hard flesh, impervious to most ordinary strength, but a simple kick from Mo was enough to break a few of his ribs. It had been a long time since he last suffered such injuries. The pain of his broken bones sticking into his organs cleared his mind, and in the very next breath, he sensed the changes happening to his space-time river. He realized the severity of the situation. If Mo was allowed to continue what he was doing, sooner or later, his space-time river would be completely corrupted by black ink strength. He would lose all his Tao strengths, and even if he did not die, he would become crippled and useless. The urgent sense of danger consumed Yang Kai, and he knew that if he did not do something soon, it would be too late. After stabilizing himself, Yang Kai gathered his thoughts and wielded all the strength he could muster. The next instant, his body turned into an invisible black hole that devoured large amounts of the river's water. He was refining the Tao strengths and absorbing them into his body. Yang Kai had been able to put away his original space-time river and summon it out when he wanted to deal with his opponent because he had gained the river through hard work and diligent cultivation. It was the manifestation of his own Tao strengths. However, the gift from Mu had been too overwhelming. Even though he used his space-time river to devour and refine Mu's space-time river, which led to a great increase in his mastery over the 10,000 grand Taos, he now had a problem on his hands too. He did not have full control over his new space-time river. Currently, he was like a 3-year-old who was trying to wield a massive sledgehammer. Though the sledgehammer was powerful, he could not even lift it. That was the reason why he could not fight back against Mo. It was to the point where he seemed even weaker than Zhong Ruoshi. After all, Ruoshi had diligently cultivated for some 2,000 years in the chaotic dead territory. By using her Heaven's Order bloodline to harmonize the powers of yin and yang to a level where she could control it, she was able to unleash all of that power freely. There was only one way for Yang Kai to deal with his current situation, and that was to refine the Tao strengths and absorb them into his body. That was the only method for him to gain control over his new spacetime river and be strong enough to oppose Mo. It was an extremely dangerous move. If he were careless for even a moment, he would explode from the overwhelming power of the massive spacetime river and would undoubtedly die. That was the reason why Yang Kai did not choose to do so earlier, but under the present circumstances, he had to throw caution to the wind and take the risk. As he did this, a huge vortex emerged on top of the river. It looked like a large mouth that was swallowing the water. Meanwhile, Mo was still channeling his black ink strength and corrupting the river. By doing so, Mo could even absorb the river and strengthen itself. After seeing the appearance of the vortex though, Mo's eyes flashed with an unreadable glimmer as he scoffed, "You finally realized it." Mo had spent many years with Mu and understood the spacetime river far better than Yang Kai did, so he could immediately tell what Yang Kai was doing when he saw the movement of the river. Both of them continued to refine the power of the spacetime river, which rapidly shrank before them. When it came down to it though, this was still Yang Kai's spacetime river. Thus, Mo could not refine it as quickly as Yang Kai could. It could be said that Yang Kai and Mo were devouring the river at a ratio of 7-3. Beneath the river, Yang Kai's face had turned red as his dragon vein throbbed with ferocity within him. The Tao strengths he devoured and absorbed into his body made him feel as if he were going to explode. He even had the urge to transform into a divine dragon. Nevertheless, he squashed down this thought. Although turning into a divine dragon could ease the pressure on his body, there was still a limit. It would not make a difference if he could not find a way to surpass that limit. Therefore, he chose to grit his teeth and bear it. Thankfully, he had endured a similar kind of pressure when he first started taking in the gift Mu left behind and was now able to have a marginally easier time with it. As time passed, the massive spacetime river had shrunk by about 30%. Beneath the river, Yang Kai was surrounded by Tao strengths, while above the river, Mo's aura had grown a lot stronger too. All of a sudden, Yang Kai's eyes hardened. As he continued to devour the power of the river, he raised his hands and snarled, "Rise." The spacetime river that cut across the void seemed to abruptly come to life as the water churned and the waves came crashing down at Momo's gaze darkened as he swiftly backed off. He knew that even with his present strength, he would have a hard time if he was struck by the full force of the spacetime river. His eyes briefly flickered with surprise as he did not think that Yang Kai would be able to gain control over the spacetime river so quickly. If Yang Kai was previously likened to a 3-year-old attempting to wield a sledgehammer and failing due to his lack of strength, then he was now a young child able to raise the sledgehammer, though luck and fate would determine whether or not he could strike his opponent with it. As the river surged, Yang Kai's figure appeared out of it. It was clear that something was not right with his present state. It was as if an indescribable power gathered within his body. He looked like he was about to explode at any given moment. That was indeed the case. He was at his limit from the Tao strengths that had built up inside him. He felt a pressing need to let it all out of him, so with that thought in mind, he shot up and charged at Mo. As he moved, the colossal spacetime river followed behind him like a shadow. Marshall Peak. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.